What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto was the secret desire of every Kunoichi in the Hidden Leaf? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. Naruto sighed dejectedly as he sat up in bed. He switched off the alarm on the clock before it could go off. After all, what good would that do? Naruto had been awake all night long thinking of his upcoming match against Hyuga Neji. For any other genin, that would have spelled a recipe for disaster, but fortunately, or unfortunately, for Naruto he was not your everyday ordinary ninja. No, he was the #1 surprising shinobi of Konoha, so sleep or not Naruto was feeling bright and chipper. And oh, it might have just a little something to do with his big fluffy prisoner. Naruto could feel sardonic amusement roll off the kitsune in waves at the fluffy comment. Ever since the fateful night that Mizuki-sensei had broken the Sandame's law, Naruto had become increasingly aware of the kitsune's emotions. It seemed as if just by becoming aware of his prisoner, Naruto had begun to form some kind of mental bond with the nine-tailed fox, or maybe the bond had always been there and only now Naruto was taking notice of it. So easily surprised, little mortal? We share a vessel, our souls are intertwined. It should come as no surprise to you, my vessel, that we are each able to sense the other. Naruto nodded to himself. Yay, that kinda does make sense, I guess. Naruto felt the Kyuubi shift its body and wrap its long sinuous tails about itself in a makeshift blanket as it settled down in a relaxed position. Naruto had been surprised at how benign the monster fox of Konoha was most of the time. When Naruto had first met the demon fox, the sheer size of the demon and the magnitude of the raw chakra rolling off the fox had hit him with the force of a blow, leaving him petrified with more awe than terror. No, Naruto was not terrified. Okay, maybe perhaps just a little bit. But still, after having been faced with murder attempts and killer intents from the day he had been self-aware, Naruto knew that the demon fox meant its vessel no harm. Naruto could sense the kitsune's killer intent all right. But he also knew that the murderous thoughts were not directed towards himself but towards whatever had forced the Jinchuriki into a situation of such enormous peril that the Kyuubi had been forced to pull the orange-clad ninja into his mindscape. Come closer, child, the fox had murmured, and Naruto had obediently moved forward. How could he have done otherwise? The incredible presence before him was power incarnate, and Naruto had instinctually sensed that disobeying the creature would have consequences far greater than mere death. When the claws had rushed out at him, Naruto had fallen over in surprise. I want to devour you, but this gate will not open, the fox had said after its strike. It is a detestable seal. Now Naruto may not have been the sharpest kunai in the pouch, but he did know a little something about predators. It was a basic lesson at the academy, as so many taijutsu styles were based on creatures of the wild. All hunting creatures were incredibly well adapted to gauge distance so that they may successfully pounce or slash as the situation may demand. So why should the Kyuubi, the mighty demon fox, be any different? The look in the fox's eyes, it spoke of infinite patience and inhuman intelligence. Why would such a powerful creature fail to destroy a mere genin had it felt so inclined? It did not occur to Naruto until later that it was highly suspicious that the demon was freely giving away information about the conditions of its captivity. As these thoughts and others came to Naruto, the orange-clad ninja could sense the demon's approval. This situation is familiar, Naruto thought. It almost feels like the bell test Kakashi-sensei made us do. So does this mean that this is all a test? Naruto thought that the Kyuubi had seemed amused and approving at that time. But then again, what did he know of the facial expressiveness of demon foxes anyways? You came to me this time. Why did you come here? The Kyuubi murmured quietly when Naruto had reached his conclusion. It almost seemed like the demon fox was searching for something within its vessel's personality. A test of character perhaps? Naruto thought in frustration. Or maybe it is something else? What does the fox mean by, you came to me this time? I did not come here. The fox dragged me here. Gah. This is all so confusing. Naruto never was good at figuring out logic problems and riddles. He was more adept at making riddles and setting up pranks than doing the converse. With a jolt, Naruto remembered that outside his mind, his body was steadily plummeting towards oblivion. I don't have time for this. He thought desperately. I need chakra now. Hey, you dumb fox. Naruto called out with a bravery he did not feel. Since you are staying in my body, Give me your chakra as rent. He winced at calling the fox dumb, when he knew it was anything but. However, Naruto needed to get the fox off balance. Insulting Sasuke always made the angsty genin furious, making the raven-haired boy unable to think clearly. Maybe it would work on the fox as well. The fox had been quiet and contemplative for a few moments as it considered the blonde genin's words, not even slightly put off. Naruto waited with bated breath for the Kyuubi's answer. If the fox did not acquiesce, he would die. If he was dead, his dreams would die with him as well. He said he would become the Hokage. For that to happen, he needed to live. You are saying that if you die, I will die as well? The Kyuubi murmured thoughtfully. Huh, I don't remember saying that. Naruto thought. But that is a good point. Why didn't I think of that? Again the fox seemed amused and both approving and disapproving. Naruto looked at it suspiciously, wondering if the fox could hear his thoughts. You have guts blackmailing me like that? The fox lazily commented at length as it gazed down upon its mortal vessel with unreadable eyes. Very well, the fox continued as red chakra leaked across the bars of the cage imprisoning the demon, surrounding Naruto. It is a reward for coming all the way here. I will give it to you. Naruto remembered being in excessive pain as he absorbed a minuscule fraction of the great beast's chakra. When he opened his eyes, Naruto found himself still plummeting into the deep chasm, with no end in sight. How deep is this abyss anyways? Naruto wondered as he hurriedly went through the hand signs of the summoning technique and summoned the toad boss, Gamabunta. There is somewhere you need to be, little mortal. The Kyuubi reminded quietly, breaking into Naruto's reminiscence. Regardless of your sensei's example, tardiness will become an enormous hurdle in your quest for power. Huh? What? Oh yeah, the Chunin examinations? Naruto thought as he leapt out of bed and hurried through his morning rituals and hurried through the streets in the direction of the amphitheater that served as the tournament grounds. Naruto walked unseenly through the marketplace, when he overheard a pair of villagers discussing the upcoming Chunin examinees. To be honest, it was the name of his opponent that had captured his attention. Naruto slowed down his pace and walked directly behind the two villagers and shamelessly eavesdropped on their conversation. It turned out that both of the young men were very excited to be able to witness the skills of last year's #1 rookie who was also a Byakugan user firsthand. Naruto almost snorted and wondered if every ninja with good grades and some kind of bloodline was considered a genius. From what he had seen in the Forest of Death and the C-B-class mission in the Waves, the feral creatures of the wild and rogue ninjas could not care less what your grades may have been in the academy, and possessing a bloodline only helps in moving up in priority of the enemies, must-kill list. Listening to their animated conversation, Naruto remembered the words of Kakashi-sensei and Rock Lee from the Chunin preliminary fights. Even my Sharingan is not able to see those Tenkutsu. Kakashi, the strongest genin in Konoha, is most likely on my team. And he is Hyuga Neji. Lee, Naruto, realizing that he was getting depressed again, laughed out loud suddenly, garnering strange looks from passerbys. I'm able to summon a toad now, so I should be fine. He exclaimed out loud, thinking of the king of toads, Gamabunta. Hey Fox, you don't think that Hyuga will be much of a challenge against Uzumaki Naruto eh? The fox did not answer the query, causing Naruto's frame to slouch in defeat. Not even his prisoner had any faith in his abilities, it seemed. But then how could he hope for anyone to trust in his abilities? His own Junin sensei had abandoned him, foisting him onto another, claiming that the closet pervert was a better ninja than himself. Yay right, Naruto thought sarcastically. The administrative elite Junin is more powerful than the former Anbu captain. It had hurt to be cast aside so easily in favor of the Uchiha survivor, and not even his current sensei took him seriously, choosing to make use of his time spying on naked women in bathhouses rather than train his student. Around him, his sensitive ears picked up comments about the loud-mouth freak and the accursed demon boy. Naruto laughed nervously as he walked faster through the crowd. He could now pick up murmurs of people talking about how skilled Hyuga Neji was, and about how he was certain to destroy the demon boy come today's match. There was no question of who would be the winner today. No, the bets that were going around was whether or not the Hyuga would succeed in eliminating the demon of Konoha for good. The villagers had even begun discussing commemorating Hyuga Neji as a hero of the leaf for eliminating the Kyuubi incarnate. Not realizing what he was doing, Naruto broke into a sprint, pushing past the two villagers who had just been glorifying the Hyuga prodigy. He had to get away from those voices. By the time Naruto had realized he was running, he was almost at the training grounds of Konoha set aside for the genin and chunin. This was where he always came when he was feeling a little down, so it was not surprising that he would find himself here when he was distressed and running blindly. Naruto had stopped going to the Hokage monument after the vandalizing experience. That place had stopped being his private haven as far too many people would be there watching Naruto closely, fearing a repeat performance from him. Naruto stopped in his tracks when an image of Hyuga Neji rose within his mind from the Chunin examination's preliminary round, when the Hyuga prodigy was staring at the form of his fallen cousin. Hyuga Neji, those eyes, he murmured thoughtfully. The pain in those eyes. Unbidden, the images of Gaara followed by Sasuke rose in his mind. The Kyuubi seemed to grow alert as he remembered the sand user. The demon fox seemed to have taken a solid interest in the Jinchuriki of the sand. Everyone has those weird eyes. Naruto murmured out loud. Within his mind he could feel the Kyuubi move restlessly within his cage. Burning eyes that are hard like stone, cold like ice. There was darkness within them. Foolish mortal. Now is not the time for such idle speculation. Your mind wanders. Not now? Naruto thought at the Kyuubi. Why not now? There was silence for a few moments where Naruto was afraid that the Kyuubi would not answer. You must focus if you desire to win against the human child that wields the eyes of a demon. The Kyuubi murmured at length. If you continue along this vein you will not be able to fight to your full potential in the match and you are already mentally exhausted. Demon eyes? You mean Gaara? Naruto asked. The demon shook his giant head in the negative and projected the image of the Byakugan user right in front of Naruto, almost like a bunchen that only the Kyuubi vessel could see. Those aren't demon eyes. That's the Byakugan, Neji's bloodline limit. Naruto waited for the kitsune to reply, but the fox seemed to be pondering something. Whatever. I'll be fine. When the battle starts and my blood starts rushing through my body, I'll be as good as new. No worries, Naruto said to himself as he put on his fox smile and walked through the training grounds. It is foolish to rely upon the rush of battle for your strength, little mortal. The Kyuubi reprimanded harshly from within its cage. Learn to leash your temper, short-lived child, or you will find your lifeline cut shorter still as those with demon blood overthrow you in fair combat. My vessel you may be, child, and you have only just begun to learn to wield the power I have lent to you. However, the fact remains that your blood is vastly inferior to that of one with demon blood in their veins like your opponent. Hey, I told you, the Hyuga are human. They have the Byakugan, not demon eyes, and they are all human. The Kyuubi only hummed noncommittally and did not pursue the subject further. Naruto continued walking towards the tournament grounds when he felt a familiar chakra signature before him. Naruto blinked, wondering who it was when he spotted a familiar figure before him practicing palm strikes against a practice stump. Hinata, he called out in recognition, causing the addressed Kunoichi to let out a startled yelp. Na Naruto-kun, she called out as she hid behind the training stump, peeking out from behind it. Why did you come here? Isn't today the main matches? Naruto blinked and rubbed the back of his head with one hand, a nervous gesture. I just came to see this training area, since this is where I became a genin. Naruto murmured, picking the first excuse that came to him, the words sounding lame to his own ears. Naruto did not need to be concerned though, as the shy Kunoichi seemed to accept his answer at face value. Really? She asked. But why? Naruto looked away defensively, feeling anger budding within him. Why should he explain himself to her? No one answered any of his questions because he was the demon boy. Why should he answer their questions? Who was she to question his whereabouts? No reason. Who cares about the reason? He snapped at the Hyuga heiress. Oh, Hinata murmured softly, looking down dejectedly. Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. What I mean is. Naruto also looked away in shame when the scent of salt hit his nose, causing him to look back at the Hyuga heiress in alarm. Hinata, she's crying. Naruto began to feel a little guilty for snapping at the pale-eyed Kunoichi. He had always known that Hyuga Hinata had confidence issues, and after meeting her cousin in the preliminary matches, it was not difficult for him to guess why the girl always stuttered so much. Naruto shuddered at the thought of those pupil-less eyes staring at him day in and day out, watching, measuring and judging his every action. It was not surprising that the gentle Kunoichi was breaking under the pressure. To think that he himself had hurt the girl when she was only just beginning to blossom. Within his mind, Naruto could feel the Kyuubi sit up and peer through his eyes with interest. Naruto wondered what was so interesting about Hinata, to capture the demon lord's attention. Shrugging off the thought, Naruto focused on the problem at hand. "Hey Hinata, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have snapped at you." Naruto murmured, looking at the Kunoichi earnestly. "I'm just feeling a little jittery, you know, from the match and all." "You don't have to apologize, Naruto-kun," Hinata murmured, a soft blush spreading across her face. "I understand, you are battling Neji-Nisan today." Naruto remembered the conversation from the marketplace. "Hey Hinata," Naruto murmured, causing the Kunoichi to stare at him in surprise. Naruto found it a little strange that she was always so surprised when someone addressed her. It was almost as if no one ever paid attention to the girl. "She is unused to attention," the Kyuubi supplied. "Huh? How could that be? I thought she would get tons of attention, like Sasuke Teme. They are both heirs to the clan." "Naruto-kun?" Hinata murmured, "Is there something you wanted to ask me?" Oh yay. Neji is your relative, right?" As soon as the words came out of his mouth, Naruto wanted to hit himself. Of all the stupid things he had to say, Hinata giggled softly and nodded shyly. "He is my first cousin," she replied softly, peeking out from behind the training stump. "Hyuga Neji, is he strong?" Naruto asked quietly. Hinata's face fell and she looked off to the side with downcast eyes. Naruto's spirit plummeted. "I see, so he's that strong, huh? Last year's #1 rookie, and he has an advanced bloodline limit, how am I going to defeat him?" Naruto thought dejectedly. "But, you might be able to defeat him, Naruto-kun." Hinata blurted out. "Huh? What? Oh." Naruto laughed out loud. He didn't want to appear weak before Hinata and he easily plastered on his practiced fox grin and put his arms behind his head. "Yeah, I am strong," he called out energetically. He tried to keep laughing but found it difficult to do. Frustrated, Naruto realized that the fox was right. He really was mentally strained. Was he really ready for this battle, he wondered. "I'm sure you can beat him, Naruto-kun," Hinata murmured. Naruto looked up in surprise to see the heiress twiddling her fingers. "When you cheered me on, I felt like I had become stronger than before." Hinata continued, her voice beginning to gain strength as she took a step out from behind the stump in Naruto's direction. "If a stranger looked at me, it might seem like I haven't changed. But I think I was able to change." Hinata suddenly seemed to realize that she was staring at Naruto and looked away, blushing hotly. "I think it was thanks to you, Naruto-kun. I think you helped me become stronger." Naruto looked at the shy Kunoichi, taken aback. That had to be the longest speech he had ever heard Hinata make, that too without stuttering. Maybe she was getting stronger, and it was because of him. He was partly responsible for her strength. The thought made Naruto feel proud of himself, sending his ego soaring. It deflated instantly though when the Kyuubi projected snaps of the conversations of the villagers to the forefront of Naruto's mind. "Hey Hinata," Naruto asked in a subdued voice. "Do you really think that? I may look strong from your point of view, but I always screw up. And I just act strong because I'm mad, and—" "No, that's not true," Hinata exclaimed, cutting in uncharacteristically. She looked mortified and clasped hands to her chest when she realized what she had done. "Hinata?" Naruto said in wonder. The Kyuubi looked on interestedly, listening and seeing through Naruto's senses. For some reason, the demon fox seemed terribly amused by all the proceedings. Naruto wondered what was so funny. "That's not true," Hinata repeated, smiling shyly as if at some private thought. "Even if you did make a mistake, you were always, from my point of view, a proud man who makes lots of mistakes. When I looked at you, there was this impact on my heart." Hinata began twiddling her fingers shyly. "You're not perfect. You make mistakes and get stronger from them. I believe that is true strength. Naruto-kun, I think you are a strong person." With every word, Hinata shyly stepped behind the stump again, half hidden, half visible. "Hinata, she believes in me, when no one else does." "Thank you, Hinata," Naruto murmured, grinning shakily. Hinata stopped twiddling her fingers and looked up in surprise. It was almost as if she was unused to being shown gratitude. Naruto frowned inwardly and put that thought away for later at the fox's advice and focused on Hinata. I've always been last place in everything. He continued. I was nervous over nothing. I was a bit depressed, but I feel better now. Hinata looked overjoyed at his words and Naruto walked off towards the tournament grounds waving as he walked away. Naruto paused suddenly. He did not know why, but he felt like he had made a new friend. He had gained another precious person. He felt the need to acknowledge it out loud so that it was more firmly rooted in reality. Hinata, he said, not turning around. Why yes? Hinata asked startled again. I always thought of you as a dark, timid, and weird person. Naruto began walking away as he kept speaking. But you know something. I like people like you. Pausing, Naruto turned around to see a blushing Hinata. Oh, and be sure to come watch me beat Neji, he exclaimed just as the fireworks went off. Crap, it's time already? Naruto yelled, cursing. I'm late. Late. See you later Hinata. Naruto ran off and made it inside the amphitheater exactly on time, not even slightly out of breath. He felt like an enormous weight had been lifted off his chest and he could breathe more freely. Naruto realized that he was no longer mentally exhausted. Glancing up at the stands, Naruto caught sight of a pink-haired Kunoichi sitting beside her best friend. Naruto felt elated. Oddly enough, his heart did not pound or soar like it usually did when he caught sight of Kunoichi of Team 7. Must be the exam getting on my nerves, Naruto thought as he lined up alongside the other Chunin examinees. Naruto only then caught sight of the dejection on Sakura's face. Naruto looked around and sure enough the Uchiha survivor was nowhere to be seen. Hey, where's Sasuke Teme? He asked out loud only to be met with shrugs all round. Sasuke, you'd better get your ass here fast, Naruto thought distractedly. You're worrying Sakura-chan. This isn't just a normal research trip. The Sannin exclaimed. There is a woman I want to ask some questions, so I had to find her. Naruto snorted. Like he cared. The perverted hermit can do his perverted stuff all by himself. The Jinchuriki had better things to do, like train for instance. And he told the hermit as much. Train? Jiraiya echoed disbelievingly. Yeah, train, Naruto replied, hiding his hurt behind his annoyance at the frog hermit. Was it really that surprising that he wanted to train and become a better ninja? I'm going to have Kakashi-sensei teach me a lot. Like the Chidori, Naruto added as an afterthought. The Chidori, huh? Well Jiraiya murmured as he looked around shiftily. I believe you can't master that move. What? Naruto screamed in outrage. How dare this man doubt his ability to learn a jutsu? He had mastered the Kage Bunshin, an ranked forbidden jutsu, in a scant few hours. There was no jutsu he couldn't learn. He just had to work hard at it, and he would eventually get it. He was sure of it. Naruto turned a slit-eyed glare upon the Toad Sannin, who waved his hands in a placating manner before his face. More importantly, that woman I'm talking about is really hot. You want to see her, right? The Sannin murmured conspiratorially as if he was giving Naruto a heavy treat. Too bad Naruto wasn't buying it. Naruto wondered why every single sensei he got turned out to be a pervert. The hermit is most eager to remove us from within the boundaries of Konoha, the Kyuubi observed dispassionately from within its cage, a calculating gleam in its eyes. Naruto's eyes narrowed as he considered the Kyuubi's words. The fox was right. Now that he thought about it, this whole thing seemed to be fishy. Why would the Sannin want Naruto to accompany him on what was to be beyond doubt another peeping expedition to a nearby village? Naruto was about to question Jiraiya, when he felt a big furry tail wrap around his head and stuff itself into the mouth of his spiritual self, effectively preventing Naruto from speaking. MMMFF. QMFF. Let MMMF go. You must not be so eager to reveal your knowledge, little mortal. For now be patient and hold your peace. Mistaking Naruto's grimace for a young boy's childish avoidance of females as the mysterious and icky other, Jiraiya changed tactics. Sighing melodramatically as he walked away, the hermit murmured, then I have no other choice. What a shame. I know a technique that's more powerful than Chidori. Naruto's attention perked up at the mention of a jutsu more powerful than the Chidori. Apparently the demon fox's interest had been piqued as well. Foxes were by nature curious creatures, and the demon had witnessed the effects of the Chidori through Naruto's eyes and was quite charmed that the race of hairless monkey rats had managed to create a technique with such destructive potential. Naruto used the Kyuubi's moment of inattention to break free of the loose grip around his head. "What did you do that for?" Naruto asked the Kyuubi in his mind, pouting agitatedly after spitting out metaphorical fur. The Kyuubi paid no attention to its vessel's query, but instead murmured a soft, "Your sensei is speaking, mortal child. You would do well to heed his words in silence. It will be to your benefit. But he's such a pervert." Naruto whined in his mind. "I don't want to go on this stupid research trip. Ero Sennin probably got caught peeking in the Konoha bathhouses. He just wants to go somewhere else for his dumb research." The Kyuubi's shoulders sagged somewhat, and he whined almost inaudibly in his throat, the fox's version of a human sigh, Naruto realized. "Your point is well taken, child. However, regardless of his tasteless pursuits, this man is hailed by your people as one of the most powerful, and the powerful are known to be eccentrics," the Kyuubi reasoned. "The Toad Summoner is offering to take you beyond the borders of Konoha without placing any manner of mission constraints, giving you much freedom. Tell me, child, have you ever been outside of this village aside from your mission in the waves?" "You know I haven't," Naruto said grumpily. "So why bother asking me? I am not putting you at fault, little warrior. I merely ask you to see this as an opportunity to grow." "But I will grow. With Kakashi-sensei. He's gonna train me to get stronger," Naruto insisted. "Physical strength alone will be insufficient in enabling you to rise amongst your ranks. And that is all your tardy sensei has to offer," the Kyuubi murmured patiently. "Should you stay with your current sensei, you will never receive the training and attention required to become a true warrior." "Ninja," Naruto corrected. "A warrior by another name," the fox countered. "Ponder my words, child, but now return to your sensei." With those words, the Kyuubi forced Naruto to the front of his mind, back to Jiraiya when Naruto heard the tail end of Jiraiya's orchestrated parting comments. "I guess I'll take Sasuke with me," the hermit murmured in a rather carrying tone of voice. "What? Hey, there is no way in hell that's gonna happen," Naruto screamed, forgetting his earlier resolve to not go with the toad hermit. "I change my mind. You wait right here, Ero-sanin, and I'll go pack my stuff." With that, Naruto raced off in the direction of his apartment, stirring up a cloud of dust in his wake. Many villagers jumped out of the way of the speeding orange blur, screaming curses after the inconsiderate and ridiculously noisy ninja. Kakashi-sensei, Ero-sanin, Sakura-chan. All they could see was that Sasuke Teme. What's so special about him, huh? Everyone in this entire village fawns on that bastard. Why? What's that Teme got that I don't? Naruto muttered as he hurriedly stuffed the bag full of travel necessities. The Kyuubi looked through Naruto's eyes at what he was packing and snorted in disgust. "Child, is there not anything you possess? Any clothing that is not orange?" the Kyuubi asked politely. "Nah, this is the only thing the shopkeepers would sell me," Naruto said, naming the outrageous amount he paid for the 6 identical orange jumpers. "Speak in your mind, child," the Kyuubi admonished. "What? Oh yay, you can hear me think," Naruto said, showcasing his talent at pointing out the obvious. "Anyways, what's wrong with orange? It looks great on you," Naruto asked, admiring the great fox's sleek, deep burnt orange coat. The Kyuubi's chest rumbled in what Naruto had learned was a chuckle. "Thank you, child. However, boy, I am a fox and my coat is a very dark orange that is almost red. Not the garish shade you choose to wear," the Kyuubi murmured. "Or are forced to wear." "Forced?" Naruto asked, puzzled as he completed his packing. "No one forces me to wear anything. I wear what I want to." The Kyuubi sighed again at his vessel's naivete and asked Naruto to show him the rest of his wardrobe. Naruto, although was confused, obliged immediately. The Kyuubi fell silent as he took in the assortment of old ladies' knickers and oversized or undersized ugly boxers the shopkeepers had tricked Naruto into buying. Aside from Naruto's orange jumpsuits, walrus sleeping hat and pajamas, Naruto did not own much else. The only fashionable piece Naruto owned was a black t-shirt with an orange spiral embroidered on the front, from when he was younger. "Hey Fox, is something wrong?" Naruto asked when the Kyuubi held his silence for a long time. The Kyuubi awoke from its contemplation and regarded its vessel keenly. "Naruto," Kyuubi murmured, surprising the boy by addressing him by his name. How much money do you have in your possession at present? Oh, quite a lot actually. Naruto exclaimed happily. The old pervert had used up all my money in the month before the exams on his research. But I earned 3 times as much 'cause I defeated the Hyuga. The Kyuubi's temper flared as it recalled the hermit robbing his own student for his perversion. He will need to keep an eye on the boy's finances. The Kyuubi was quite impressed actually that his vessel had been able to survive for so long despite being ostracized and cheated so assiduously by the villagers. Naruto's innocence was not a trait that was desirable in either a predator or a warrior. If the Kyuubi's vessel was to survive in the harsh world of the shinobi, he would need someone to constantly watch over him to see to it that the boy is not cheated, since he is unable to do so for himself. Naruto, unpack all of your clothing from within your pack and instead gather all of your precious scrolls that you have not yet read and memorized. Also take with you all of your wealth. But then, what am I going to change into when we get to the village? Naruto asked. You will buy yourself a new wardrobe. What you wear now is not worthy of the vessel of the great Kyuubi. Naruto was about to argue when the Kyuubi added, it will help you with your training. It will? Naruto asked with eager shining eyes. Okay, I'll do it. The Kyuubi would have smiled if its vulpine visage had been capable of such a feat. The fox watched Naruto as the boy followed the demon's instructions and packed up all of his precious belongings. The Kyuubi chose not to comment as Naruto stroked his walrus nightcap solemnly and held it against his cheek before he added it to his travel pack. The cap was the first and only gift he had ever received, given to him by the late Sandame when the boy was 7 years old. Naruto had not been as loud and boisterous since the passing of Sarutobi. The little orphan had loved the man as he would his own grandfather. With the man's death, there was very little protecting Naruto from the misplaced wrath of the village council. Thinking this and many other similar thoughts, the Kyuubi came to a decision. Inzen. The Kyuubi murmured softly. Huh? Naruto asked, tilting his head, locking his blue eyes with the Kyuubi's red. What's an Inzen? You may address me by my name, mortal child. From this day onwards you will have my protection and what little teachings I may be able to provide a human child, the Kyuubi murmured. My name is Inzen. Naruto blinked. Inzen, huh? That's a cool name. Naruto muttered softly. So you're gonna teach me? Naruto said excitedly. Okay Inzen-sensei, but you have to call me Naruto, K. Not my vessel or mortal child or something stuffy like that. Agreed Naruto. The Kyuubi replied. However, it is simply Inzen. Foxes have no use for honorifics. Although you must address myself as Kyuubi or Kyuubi-sama when speaking of myself to others. The Nine Tails murmured, amusement evident in its voice. K. Inzen. Naruto replied happily as he headed towards where Jiraiya was waiting, jumping from roof to roof in true ninja style. It occurred to Naruto not for the first time that the Kyuubi did not seem at all malicious or bloodthirsty. He wondered why the fox had attacked Konoha all those years ago. When the Sandame Hokage had been alive, Naruto had asked him, but the old man had no answers. Hey Ky Inzen, Naruto murmured softly. Why did you, Another time Naruto. The fox murmured softly. I will tell you when you have become more aware of the world around you that extends far beyond the borders of this village. Naruto fell silent for a while as he thought this over. K. Inzen, do you but are you? We will speak at another time Naruto. The fox said with a tone of finality. Your sensei is calling for you, you must make haste or he may leave you behind. Naruto nodded, accepting the answer. He could feel the thoughts of the demon fox like the distant hum of a waterfall. What took you so long, brat? The Sannin teased. I had to pack, K. Naruto replied. So where are we going? You will see, the Sannin replied as he took off through the gates of Konoha towards the east. Behind him, Naruto struggled to keep up with his heavy bag jumping from tree to tree. Naruto watched enviously as the toad hermit silently tree jumped with a grace that belied his appearance. Watching carefully, with instructions from the Kyuubi, Naruto strove to emulate the Sannin's quiet leaps. Noticing what Naruto was doing, Jiraiya turned around, and offered a few pieces of advice to help the blonde genin with his progression in stealth training. Sasuke. Naruto called out softly as he gently cradled the fallen Uchiha. Sasuke. Naruto called out a little louder as he lightly shook the boy, careful not to jar the broken body. Inzin watched through Naruto's eyes, the blonde genin's anxiety bleeding onto him, but at the same time he could not help but feel relieved. The encounter with the Order of the Ringbearers had been enlightening, much more than it should have been. The Kyuubi no Kitsune and its vessel had been fortunate to escape this encounter unscathed. "Ero Sennin, what's wrong with Sasuke?" Naruto called out, desperation coloring his voice. "Ero Sennin." Kyuubi looked at the open apathetic eyes of the raven-haired child, blood dripping down the corner of his mouth, past his chin, pooling on the floor. The boy's consciousness had retreated deep within the recesses of his mind in an attempt to escape from the brutal psychological torture inflicted upon him. But the attempt had come too late, the damage had already been done. Jiraiya let the nickname pass and gave his apprentice a hard look before dismissing him as a lesser priority. The Toad Sannin, for the first time since Naruto had encountered him, was acting his part as an elite shinobi, one that severely outranked all of the ninja population of Konoha, save the Hokage himself. "Guy, take Sasuke to a squad of medical ninja immediately." Jiraiya commanded the Junin. "His arm and ribs are broken. Also, he took a psychological attack from a dujutsu and was knocked unconscious." Knocked unconscious? The Kyuubi thought, sensing the severe understatement. Perhaps the Sannin did not want to distress the blonder genin any more than he already was. Sasuke was not merely unconscious, he was now in coma. And in his current state, only a very highly skilled medic nin would be able to correctly estimate when the boy would be conscious, if he were ever to wake up at all. This Uchiha Sasuke. He had a very delicate frame of mind. No wonder, considering that his mind had been brutally trespassed upon, not once but twice, by his own brother. The Kyuubi watched as Naruto played the look in Sasuke's eyes over and over again, seeing something there that the Kyuubi had missed. The Jinchuriki's thoughts were a jumble as he tried to process what had just happened. Why would he do that to his own brother? Naruto cried out in anguish. Jiraiya and Guy traded a look at Naruto's outburst. "You have your own student to attend to," Guy murmured deferentially, speaking in a surprisingly low, non-booming voice. "I shall take Sasuke off your hands. When he comes around, I shall supervise his training until Kakashi is back on his feet." "Kakashi-sensei? What happened to Kakashi-sensei?" Naruto asked, dreading the answer. Guy looked at Naruto sympathetically as he picked up Sasuke carefully, bridal style. "He was affected by the same dujutsu as the Uchiha. He is currently unconscious." Guy nodded his farewell in Jiraiya's direction as Naruto slumped down to the floor, his eyes losing focus. Jiraiya stared at Naruto's hunched form for a few moments contemplatively before picking him up and carrying him back inside the rented hotel suite. "Ero Sennin," Naruto said, not sure what he was asking for. He felt too weak, too drained to want to escape from Jiraiya's grip. The warmth emanating from the Sannin was oddly comforting. Naruto could not remember the last time he had been held like this. "Ero Sennin," Naruto called out anxiously, clutching at Jiraiya's sleeves as the hermit deposited him on the bed and made to leave. The Sannin gave him an understanding look as he gently removed Naruto's hand from his sleeve, and pushed him down on the bed. "Go to sleep, Naruto. You have just had a very long day. You will need your rest." "But Ero Sennin," Naruto cried out. "I'll be right here," Jiraiya murmured soothingly as he touched Naruto's forehead, a green glow being emitted by his fingertip. I don't think that I want to be alone right now," Naruto murmured as he felt his eyelids grow heavy with sleep. "You won't be," Jiraiya said soothingly. "But," Naruto began. "I'm here for you, Naruto," the Kyuubi murmured. "You will never be alone. I will not allow it." "Okay," Naruto murmured softly as he allowed sleep to claim him. Jiraiya smiled at the sleeping blonde, ruffling his hair lightly. He then turned around and silenced the hotel manager with a chilling glare before he could launch his tirade about the damages incurred by the hotel. "We will speak outside. Would that be acceptable, Hufu-san?" Jiraiya said coldly, reading the name off the name tag. "Of course, Jiraiya-sama," the manager stuttered. If you would follow me right this way." Jiraiya nodded and allowed himself to be escorted out, locking eyes with the cat-masked Anbu that had arrived with Guy as he closed the door behind him. Drip, drip, Naruto thought as he slowly came to. Drip, drip. He had his head against something warm and solid. He could hear a heart beating, strong and steady. Drip, drip. The warmth that surrounded him felt indescribably wonderful, surreally so. He could feel something soft of fluffy draped over his lap. Drip, drip, where am I? Naruto murmured, as he groggily shook his head. Drip, drip, where else, but here? A familiar voice replied, that Naruto had some difficulty putting a name to in his half-lucid state. Drip, drip, someone is holding me. Naruto realized. He could feel arms holding him in their lap and rubbing gentle circles on his back. It felt so good. Drip, drip. The person behind him chuckled softly when he nuzzled closer into the warmth. Drip, drip. Who's there? Naruto asked out loud, not wanting to wake up from what he was certain was a very nice dream. After all, things like this were impossible in reality. Only in dreams can you feel so very safe, cherished for no reason other than simply existing. Drip, drip. Mirth colored the rich dark tones as the being answered the child. Who else but I? Drip, drip. Hey, no fair. That doesn't tell me anything. Naruto said crossly as he rubbed the sleep from his eyes. He was curious now and wanted to see his dream person. He desperately hoped that the warmth wouldn't disappear when he opened his eyes. Drip, drip. And by God was that dripping sound annoying. Naruto thought as he wished the sound away. And just like that the dripping noise stopped. That is an improvement, little warrior. The voice commented lightly, as Naruto finally opened his eyes. Little warrior? Naruto murmured as he turned around, but no one calls me that except. Naruto's breath caught as he looked at the man that had been holding him in his sleep. Who are you? What are you doing? Why were you holding me? Naruto asked, sounding freaked as he scampered away backwards from the man that held him in his arms. He was wary of the beautiful stranger with garnet eyes and flame-red hair, but somehow he couldn't bring himself to distrust this person that had held him so gently. And where am I? Naruto looked around to see that he was in a room whose entirety was covered in silk cushions and pillows of various sizes and large rugs hung from the walls. There seemed to be no doorway leading in or out of the room. Do you not recognize me, Naruto? The man asked curiously as he reached across and delicately traced the marks on the genin's face with one graceful long-fingered hand that ended in deadly claws. Naruto stared at the man who appeared to be in his late teens and was dressed quite simply in a black kimono and hakama over which he wore a white haori with orange and gold patterns embroidered into it, held in place by a gold silk obi. Around his neck he wore a golden medallion, and golden manacles adorned his wrists. All three of them were etched with images of the Kyuubi. Naruto whispered breathlessly as he finally noticed the warm sinuous red tails that were wound about his form, slit pupils and pointed ears. The man smiled, nodding approvingly, confirming Naruto's guess. Inzen. But how? Naruto looked around to see the mounds and mounds of silk-covered pillows and cushions that surrounded them. Where are we? The fox man looked amused as he considered his keeper's questions. Where we always meet, little warrior. We are in your mindscape. Why was I holding you? It was because you wished to be held. And as for how, I am not certain I understand what it is you desired to know. Naruto tried to speak when the Kyuubi stilled his words by gliding a finger over Naruto's lips, making the boy flush. If your question is how it is that I appear in the form you see me in now. It is simply because I can. All spirit foxes are master shape shifters and we acquire the ability to appear humanoid when we acquire our fifth tail. Inside my mind? Naruto asked. But how? I mean, where is the sewer? The cage? The bars? And well, you know the seal. The Kyuubi chuckled softly as he murmured. Impatient little mortal. Turn around. Look again and you will find your answers. Naruto blinked and did as was suggested. The wall behind him promptly melted away, revealing the bars of the cage. Naruto realized that not only was he inside his mindscape, he was also inside the Kyuubi's prison. It is rather quaint, Inzen observed, answering his host's unspoken questions. The seal that the Shinigami had created in conjunction with your father is intended to only contain the nine-tailed demon fox behind the bars of this cage. All other beings will be allowed to pass through the bars unhindered and unharmed. Inzen laughed mirthlessly. This is my prison, Naruto, and mine alone. By caging me within your soul, the Yondaime Hokage of Konoha may have succeeded in protecting this generation of his beloved village. However, the price for this has been very steep for all of humanity, as without the intervention of the nine spirits, soon all of humanity shall be condemned. Your father may have been a genius by human standards, but he was a short-sighted fool like every other mortal that has existed before him. The Yondaime Hokage was my father. Naruto asked incredulously. But the Oji-san said that, he said that. He lied to me? How very human to selfishly ponder one's own existence when the fate of the astral plane is at stake. Inzen murmured disappointedly, causing Naruto to flush guiltily. Yes, the Yondaime Hokage, Kazama Arashi, was indeed your father. The mortal could not bring himself to burden the offspring of another with the fate of a Jinchuriki, a demon host. Do not be upset, child. The Sandaime lied to you regarding your parentage for good reason. In his lifetime, your father had made a great many enemies, and given your already compromised security, you would have never lived past your first year due to the assassination attempts. His intent was merely to protect you, and not to maliciously mislead you as have done so many in this village. No, child, ask me no more of your parentage, for this is all I know. You are the child of the fool responsible for the sealing of a guardian spirit, Inzen said, forestalling any of Naruto's questions. The Kyuubi fell silent as Naruto tried to work his way through the information just presented to him. The boy was having a hard time dealing with the fact that his idol, the Yondaime Hokage, was also his father. His own father was responsible for condemning him to a life of hatred, suffering and neglect. It had been somehow easier to accept that the leader of the village had to make a hard decision and seal the legendary Kyuubi within an orphan. But his own son? Didn't his father love him? The Yondaime Hokage loved the village of Konoha. He was the greatest Kage to have ever lived. That's what all the history books said. Did this man not care about the fate of his own son? And his mother? Naruto was beginning to feel really sick at this point. Who was his mother? Where was his mother? Did she die in the Kyuubi's attack? Was she still alive? Did she abandon him? Naruto did not realize that he was crying until the Kyuubi had pulled him close and had gently wiped away the tears pouring down his face with a finger. Why? Naruto asked brokenly as sat down on the cushions, hugging his knees close. Why? Inzen sighed softly as he pulled the boy closer and gently fingered the blonde strands on Naruto's head. He knew that the boy was not going to like what he was going to say, but it had to be done. Inzen was asked a question that was within his capacity to answer, and he had to answer truthfully, for demons were unable to lie. He owed the child some answers in recompense for all the suffering his mere existence had brought upon the child. Because he was the Hokage. Naruto stiffened within his arms. What do you mean? Naruto asked quietly, sensing that the fox was going to say something he did not want to hear. Hokage. That is what you aspire to be, is it not? Inzen asked softly. Tell me, child, why is it you wish to be the Hokage? Naruto smiled brightly. That's easy. Because I want to be the strongest ninja ever, and I want everyone to acknowledge me, and so that I can protect my precious people. The Kyuubi frowned. First strength, then acknowledgement, and lastly protection? Your priorities are skewed, child, and your goals unreasonable. By becoming the Hokage you will be able to achieve none of your dreams. Inzen looked at Naruto thoughtfully, his eyes lingering upon the whisker marks on his cheeks. You did not have these marks, Naruto, when you were born. Nor did you possess them immediately after my sealing. I have been able to heal your wounds only after you were 5 years old, when your inner coils had finally developed enough to accommodate chakra manipulation. Tell me, how did you come to acquire them? They are most unsightly. Naruto flinched when the demon lord reached out to touch the marks on his face and then laughed sheepishly. Oh, these? Naruto said laughingly, closing his eyes and grinning his plastic grin. I don't remember. I've always had these, I think. Do not lie to me, mortal child. I can see your memories clearly enough, Inzen said scathingly, making Naruto flinch and look away. However, that had not prevented them from exposing the boy to shock therapy and forcing poisonous liquids down his throat. There was a medic nin on hand, a prodigy no doubt considering the youth of silver-haired boy. He was there to make certain that there was no outward evidence left of the day-long torture session and that the Jinchuriki did not die. That would not have been tolerated by the Sandaime. As a cessation to the celebration of the Kyuubi's defeat, the medic nin on the request of the villagers had carved 6 marks depicting whiskers on the boy's face. It was truly disgusting how the Kyuubi would masquerade its innocence by wearing the angelic face of their beloved Yondaime. A villager had commented while relieving himself on the heaving glassy-eyed child that had tears and blood flowing down his face. Tell me, child. Inzan said gravely, sickened by the display of the depravity of humanity. No demon or the other creatures of spirit would ever allow a child of their own to suffer so horrendously, regardless of their parentage or past. Children were just that. Innocent creatures that were not yet adults and therefore needed to be cared for. It was no wonder that so much of humanity has become corrupted if this is how they treat their own offspring. Why do you seek to protect these foolish mortals that have done nothing but cause you harm and pain? Naruto remained silent for a while before answering in an uncharacteristically quiet voice. I want to protect my precious people. These people that have tortured you, you wish to protect them? They are precious to you? No, Naruto shouted explosively. I want to protect my precious people like Oji-chan. He is no more. The Kyuubi pointed out dispassionately. Iruka-sensei. He is a chunin, is well loved and has many allies. Sakura-chan. Sasuke. Kakashi-sensei. She loathes you. She only sees you as a hindrance to her goal of acquiring the Uchiha's affections. Like you, she is another foolish child with foolish goals. Has she thanked you yet for having saved your life at the risk of your own in the fight against the vessel of Shukaku? The Uchiha regards you with contempt. He is the one you call a bastard? The one who insults you at every turn? The selfish weakling that claims that his only goal in life is to avenge his fallen clan? The one who only sees you as a tool, a stepping stone towards his ambition. Your sensei is a despicable example of humanity. Except at Naruto, he has abandoned you. Abandoned you in pursuit of little red books and the self-gratification gained from training the village celebrity, in whom he by his own admission sees a reflection of himself. None of those three care for your well-being. These so-called teammates of yours, they regard you only as a source of entertainment and annoyance. Nothing more. Naruto made as if to defend his teammates and claim that the Kyuubi was wrong, but he couldn't find any words to defend them. Naruto was not an idiot by any stretch of imagination. Quite the opposite, actually, considering the ingenious pranks he had so successfully pulled off in his childhood, and his ability to evade even the best of the Anbu for admirable periods of time despite his "here I am, kill me now" outfit. It was just that he preferred to ignore the rather unsavory details of his life and focus on the positive aspects only. After all, he did not accidentally want to turn into a brooder like the Uchiha or a crazed assassin like the Shukaku vessel. His obnoxious cheerfulness and obliviousness were a defense mechanism that had fallen in place to help the attention-deprived child preserve his sanity. However, here in the dark recesses of his soul, with only a demon lord as his companion and the sound of his own echoing thoughts, it was difficult to escape the harsh realities of life that he had subconsciously gleaned thanks to his shinobi training. Sakura. The love of his life. She had never spoken one kind word towards the orange-clad genin. Sasuke only sought to insult and fight him. There was that one time when Sasuke had protected him from Haku's senbon. But he had said that was a reflex. Naruto had thought that maybe it was because Sasuke cared. Was he reading too far into Sasuke? Did Sasuke even have any depth? And Kakashi? All the man had taught him was tree climbing. At the academy, they had been told that the genin would be growing strong under their Junin sensei. When was that going to happen? Naruto shook his head to rid himself of these unpleasant conclusions, but instead sought for people in the past that had readily demonstrated some form of goodwill towards the Jinchuriki without expecting some form of recompense. Ero Sennin, Konohamaru, Udon, Moegi, Tuchi Oji-san, Ayame Ne-chan. I will protect them, you'll see. When I become the Hokage, I will protect all of my precious people. Naruto said enthusiastically, albeit with a shaky laugh, as his words sounded hollow and desperate even to his own ears. Inzan sighed as he got to his feet and walked over to a fireplace that had just materialized. You cannot pick and choose, Naruto. Inzan said gravely as flames shot from his fingertips and lit the braziers. As the ruler, the Hokage, as your people know it, you will need to protect everybody in the village. Every single person in the village needs to be precious to you. Even those that despise you for simply existing and wrong you at every turn. They don't know what they're doing. Naruto insisted. When I'm older and more powerful, they will acknowledge me. They think that I'm a demon. They're wrong. I'm not the demon. You're the demon. And I as a demon lord deserve to be treated as you have been all your life? Inzan said frostily, as he continued watching the tongues of flame. Is that what you are implying, my host? No, no. Naruto said in horror as he realized what he had just said. I didn't mean that. I'm sorry. Naruto drew in a deep breath and hung his head dejectedly as he murmured, please don't hate me. I didn't mean it, honest. The Kyuubi took his gaze away from the two fascinating flames and studied the upset blonde genin before him. You care too much of what others think of you, boy. The demon lord observed with a frown. The acknowledgement of the masses is not a goal worthy of pursuit because such can only be gained by enslaving oneself to one's people. To live your life your own way. To create your own way of the shinobi. Was that not your goal? Have you already forgotten? Set your heart at peace, my vessel. I do not despise you. You are only a child, untrained in the art of diplomacy. I have come to expect such lapses in decorum from you. Naruto looked a little confused as he slowly worked out what the demon lord had just told him. His own nindo, that was his goal, wasn't it? Inzen quietly watched as the boy drew his own conclusions, as he slowly come to realize the mental trap he had created for himself by striving after two conflicting goals. One, to gain the village's approval by following their codes of conduct. Second, to create his own way of life that would by its very definition be different from what the village of Konoha envisioned the life of a shinobi should be like. Naruto. The Kyuubi said, interrupting his vessel's thoughts once he had reached this conclusion. These scars of yours are most unbecoming and make you far too recognizable a target to enemy shinobi. Please allow me to remove them. Remove my whisker marks? Naruto asked pensively. I guess so. But how are you going to do that? It will hurt momentarily and perhaps sting for about an hour or so. The Kyuubi temporized without revealing what exactly he was going to do. It is shameful for any vessel of mine to possess such imperfections. You will allow me to remove these unsightly scars of yours, Inzen murmured, wording his sentence as more of a command than a request. Oh, okay, Naruto said, agreeing uncertainly, and immediately 6 golden flaming tongues from the fireplace shot to Naruto's face and burnt his whisker-like scars with deadly accuracy. Naruto yelped and jumped when the flames touched him, but as the Kyuubi had promised, his wounds only stung and did not truly cause pain. Naruto touched his burn wounds and winced slightly as he considered the demon lord before him in much the same manner that the Kyuubi had been doing him only moments before. Neikei Inzen, I don't think you're evil. Naruto murmured with a seriousness few knew the prankster was capable of. Why did you attack Konoha and kill all those people? I want to know. I don't think you're the type to just go around killing people for fun. I want to know why you killed all those people, and why are you being so nice to me? It doesn't make any sense. The Kyuubi sighed inwardly as he turned his gaze back to the now steady golden flames in the fireplace. Naruto quietly came to stand beside the fireplace beside the demon lord, copying the demon lord's relaxed yet powerful stance. Too young. The Kyuubi thought as he placed a clawed hand on the head that bore the same color as the flames in the fireplace. Naruto started slightly, but did not complain at the touch. Too young and ill-trained. Too young, ill-trained, and ill-informed. The Kyuubi began combing his claws through the soft golden strands. Naruto, I have said earlier that I will tell you of the events that led to my captivity within your soul when you have learned more of the world beyond your village borders. The Kyuubi began carefully. That was only yesterday, and in the short span of a day, you have obviously not gained the maturity needed to fully comprehend what I am about to tell you. Nevertheless, I have no choice but to tell you before it is too late. We are short of time, after all the ring bearers or Akatsuki as they call themselves have already begun to move. Their actions must be put to a stop, the sooner the better. Sasuke's psycho older brother and the blue fish guy? Naruto asked. The Kyuubi nodded, slightly amused at his vessel's tendency to assign derogatory names to every new person he encountered. Uchiha Itachi and Hoshigaki Kisame, Inzen agreed. They are only 2 of the members of the Akatsuki. 2 of their top 10 echelons judging by the fact that they are both ring-bearers. You are fortunate that those 2 had only come to collect intelligence regarding your prowess as a shinobi and thus were not fighting at full strength. You are even more fortunate in the fact that they were unable to make a proper estimate as they were intercepted by one of the legendary 3. The goddess of fortune smiles upon you. They hurt Sasuke. I'll make them pay. I'm going to hunt them down. Believe it, you will do no such thing, my foolish little vessel. Inzen reprimanded, intentionally making a pun out of the elder Sharingan wielder's favorite phrase, making Naruto grimace. The difference between your own strength and theirs is paramount. You will train day in and day out and become more powerful. Thoughts of revenge for the undeserving can wait until you are able to take on the ring bearers at least one at a time. It would be better if you were to gain powerful allies to help you along in our quest. Hey, I bet Gaara will want to help. I mean, he's tons powerful, and he's a Jinchuriki too. So Fish Guy and his friends will go after him too, right? So maybe me and Gaara can fight against them together? You know, I think Gaara likes me. He stared at me a lot before going back to Suna. Inzan chuckled as he regarded the soft-faced human child with eager shining eyes that stood beside him fearlessly. The boy showed good potential, thinking up good allies in the blink of an eye when presented with a problem. It was good that the boy was naturally charismatic and had the ability to unwittingly charm even the coldest of hearts. The hearts of the powerful were more often than not desensitized to those morals and emotions that the common mortal held so dear to their heart. The boy was a diamond in the rough, the Kyuubi had no doubt. All he needed was a little, or maybe lots of polishing, and then he would shine like the gem he was meant to be. Uzumaki Naruto. The Kyuubi thought as he remembered the shinobi nickname for the child. The number one surprising ninja of Konoha. The boy had displayed enormous character when he had taken the news of being the village's hated keeper of the nine-tailed fox demon lord so admirably well. Will he be able to handle such earth-shattering news once again? When the Kyuubi informed the boy of the conundrum of epic proportions the genin had unwittingly become tangled with, simply because he had the misfortune to be born to the wrong parents at the wrong time, how would he handle it? The Kyuubi, guardian of the ninth gate, mightiest of the tailed beasts and lord of the spirit fox clan, had no choice but to put his faith and the fate of this realm in the hands of this one wide-eyed, zealous, budding ninja child. Naruto tried hard not to fidget in his seat, but it was difficult. The tension in the air was palpable, so potent that even the happy-go-lucky genin was forced to take notice. Naruto was glad he was seated opposite of the pretty dark-haired Kunoichi and her pet pig instead of across from the female member of the Sannin. What was it she had introduced herself as? Shizuma? Shizuka? No, that didn't sound quite right. Shizune. Inzan supplied. Yeah, Shizune. That's her name. And this pig is Tauntaun. I remembered that one, Naruto thought with a pout. The dark-haired Kunoichi, Shizune, giggled softly at Naruto's expression, diffusing the tension somewhat. Naruto busied himself with removing imaginary wrinkles from his new jacket. A basic white trench with snap buttons that went past his knees and had little red foxes emblazoned upon it around the collar, cuffs and hems. Naruto had originally wanted a hakama like Inzan, but the idea was quickly tossed aside when he discovered how expensive, fragile and difficult it was to care for fine silk. No, better his jacket that had been designed with a frequent traveler in mind, made to withstand both sand and storm. The jacket was invertible and was black on the inside, making it possible for it to be worn when he needed to hide in the shadows. The foxes were added in for free by the tailor on request, who had gladly complied after Naruto also bought several sets of quality and expensive leather cargo pants, vests, tees, ankle boots and various other pouches, all in black, the traditional shinobi color, useful for storing kunai, senbon, money, etc. on his person. Naruto had considered buying himself a sword belt, but decided against it when he found out that there were different types of belts available to store different kinds of blades. Naruto was extremely happy when his order of fried fish arrived as he stopped fidgeting with his coat, instead sniffed the fried fish like a starving puppy. Almost immediately Naruto picked one off the platter with his chopsticks and put it in his mouth. The food was a welcome distraction from the oppressive silence that hung over the party. Naruto got the distinct impression that the two Sannin, Tsunade and Jiraiya were conversing in body language, an assumption that was quickly verified by the Kyuubi. Naruto, pretending to be completely enamored with his fried fish, took a good look at the blonde Kunoichi. She doesn't look anywhere close to 50. Naruto thought as he scuffed his new, consequently uncomfortable, boots against the floor. Actually, she looks more like a 20-year-old. Is she using a genjutsu to cover her age? That makes her a liar, doesn't it? Is it alright for a cheater like her to become the Hokage? Jiraiya had told Naruto that Tsunade was being considered to be a Hokage candidate when they were still in the forest when the genin had asked who would be the Hokage now that the Sandaime was no more. The Hokage needs to be a master of deception if he is to be a savior to his people. Being forever honest and forthright will bring disaster to your nation, Inzen said as he studied the slug summoner through Naruto's eyes. Your shinobi warriors specialize not only in the art of assassination and capture, but also in the arts of diplomacy and deception. Also, your village recognizes this Tsunade to be powerful. She is indeed a good candidate to be a village leader. Or at least she could be, provided that she learns to stop living in the past. What do you mean, living in the past? Naruto asked as he studied the blonde Sannin. What happened to her? She looks so sad and… Naruto paused as he groped for words. Bitter? Inzen hazarded. Naruto started nodding and then stopped abruptly as all eyes turned towards him. Laughing nervously, Naruto raised his arm to rub the back of his neck, a nervous gesture of his since he was very little. Well, yay, why is she so bitter? Naruto asked. I do not know, my host. But I sense that in time we may discover the answer. What a day, seeing old acquaintances everywhere, Tsunade said after downing more sake. She seemed to be perfectly lucid despite the enormous amounts of alcohol she had consumed. Despite her drunken flush, her soft hazel eyes maintained their keenness. Jiraiya topped her glass with more sake from the decanter before helping himself to some. Orochimaru? The toad summoner asked, catching both Naruto and the Kyuubi's attention. What happened? The snake bastard? Naruto wondered, sitting up straight, his interest piqued. Jiraiya looked at Naruto disapprovingly, making the genin immediately slump back into his seat and pretend to be uninterested. Shizune giggled again at Naruto's antics. Indeed, Orochimaru, the third member of the Sannin, he who erased his own teacher and marked your comrade with the curse seal. Nothing much, Tsunade offered after a seemingly casual glance towards Naruto and Shizune. He just stopped by to say hello. Jiraiya nodded and seemed to accept the words at face value. Yay, right, Naruto thought. Came by to say hello my ass. She just doesn't want to talk about it in front of me, that's all. Inzen hummed in agreement, pleased with Naruto's deduction. The boy was learning to see underneath the underneath, as the shinobi liked to put it. That was all to the good. There were far too many people in the shinobi world that would profit from Naruto's misfortune. It was fortunate that Naruto was so quickly learning to look behind the mask that people present in everyday life, but instead look at the real person underneath. Tsunade expertly shuffled and dealt a deck of cards between herself and Jiraiya, her movements not in the least affected by the alcohol in her blood. This is the legendary Kunoichi that is said to have the ability to be able to cure any wounds, the Kyuubi observed. Her illusion is remarkable, almost on par with my own abilities. She uses the art of genjutsu to make her skin appear free of blemish. I am certain that she carries the scars of many battle wounds. Humans after all do not heal without scarring, unless they have the assistance of a demon lord like yourself, of course. What I find truly remarkable about this woman is that her youth is not illusionary. Her body truly is that of a woman in her prime. Her healing abilities must be truly amazing if she is able to keep her mortal form in such exquisite condition despite her age. Really? Naruto asked, impressed, as he discreetly scented Tsunade. True enough, she smelled like a young woman, unlike her white-haired teammate from her genin days who smelled like the aging hermit that he was. Inzen had as promised been helping Naruto become a better ninja. The first step in the process was that the Kyuubi was using his demonic chakra to influence his vessel's body to gently heighten Naruto's senses, so that the boy was not overwhelmed by all the sensory signals he would be receiving if his senses were heightened all at once. Naruto was itching to go back to the forest where he was quickly discovering an abundance of scents, tastes and sounds that he had never before known existed. It was a far more pleasing atmosphere than that of a small crowded restaurant. What do you want from me? Tsunade deadpanned, cutting to the heart of the matter. Jiraiya responded with equal candidness. I'll get straight to the point. Tsunade, the village has requested that you become the Godem Hokage. Have you heard about the Sandame? Orochimaru killed him, right? I heard from him directly. Tsunade asked as if stating a change in the weather, disregarding the slight tensing of Jiraiya's posture. Naruto's blood boiled at the disrespect shown towards his beloved Oji-chan, but he kept silent at Inzen's coaxing. Look into her eyes. Naruto did as he was told, and peered into Tsunade's hazel eyes shadowed behind her bangs. Grief. Only a tiny flicker existed deep within those orbs, flickering in and out of existence like a candle's flame in the wind. Barely visible but still there. Naruto quieted further, realizing that Tsunade did not mean to sound so offensive towards the Sandaime. Who is he? Tsunade asked, flicking her head in Naruto's direction. Jiraiya laughed as he cast a fond glance towards his latest student. Uzumaki Naruto. Tsunade lifted her head and stared at Naruto in surprise. Naruto could almost see the gears churning in her head. Tsunade knew that he was a Jinchuriki. Naruto wondered if she realized that he was simply the demon's vessel and not the demon itself. The surprise and realization on the female Sanin's face dissipated quickly as she relaxed into her seat after giving the Jinchuriki a once-over, and then dismissing Naruto's presence. He knows, Jiraiya said. Tsunade looked at Jiraiya sternly. How? It was to be a secret. A Chunin blabbed, tried to rid the village of its monster. Tsunade narrowed her eyes angrily. It has been taken care of. Or well, a lot has changed since Sarutobi-sensei's demise. Shinichiro Mizuki had been sentenced to 15 years in captivity for breaking the Sandaime's decree. Since the Sandaime's demise, his sentence has been lifted by the village council along with all the others who had chosen to defy the Sandaime's decree. Tsunade's eyes widened and her cheeks paled as she took in the implications. Naruto looked between the two grim Sannin, wondering what was wrong. Even Shizune looked appalled. Inzen, what's wrong? It is not safe for you to return to Konoha, Inzen said gravely. The streets are now teeming with those who seek your demise, and they have now found allies. If this Tsunade does not agree to take her place as the Godem Hokage, you and I will never be able to return to Konoha. Naruto turned ashen-faced. All those people that his Oji-chan made disappear. People who would overtly and covertly try to hurt the Kyuubi vessel. They were all back and banded together? It didn't take a genius to figure out what would happen next. Is that why? Tsunade asked. Yes, Jiraiya affirmed. Tsunade, you are Konoha's only hope. If you do not take your place as the Hokage, Konoha will be taken over with anarchy and civil war. There will be several opposing factions that will either be willing to follow through on the Sandaime's decree despite his demise, and those who have always regarded him as a fool for protecting Naruto. Jiraiya's voice turned pleading. For those you have lost, please Tsunade consider your pain. Surely you wouldn't want others to suffer as you have. I'll say it again. The village has requested for you to become the Godem Hokage. Tsunade seemed to waver in her opinion momentarily as she stared into her glass that was still half full. Grief and uncertainty pooled in her eyes before melting away, leaving her eyes glittering like pebbles as she regarded the cards in her hands. I refuse, Tsunade stated as she abandoned her cards, and shuffled them back into the deck, snatching the cards from Jiraiya's hand. Naruto looked at Tsunade, stricken. If Tsunade didn't go back to the village, then neither would he ever be able to go to the only home he had ever had. And if war broke out in Konoha, so many people would die. His precious people would die. Ayame Ne-chan, Tuchi Oji-san, they were only civilians. They would be the first to die, and there was nothing he could do to save them. Naruto trembled in his seat, making Tsunade momentarily lock her gaze with his. She looked a trifle apologetic as she studied Naruto with medical interest. Jiraiya is capable of protecting you. You needn't fear for your life, she said, misunderstanding Naruto's concern. My life? What will be left of my life if Konoha is destroyed? Once the village council members discovered that he was missing, which wouldn't take too long, a price will be placed upon his head. Both staying within and out of Konoha without Tsunade as the Hokage were not feasible options. Tsunade had to become the Hokage. She had to. Why? Naruto asked, his voice cracking from his anguish. Why won't you become the Hokage? Tsunade laughed mirthlessly. The Hokage is a fool's job. Sarutobi-sensei had been a fool as had been the Yondaime. Both threw away their lives for the sake of their village. Life isn't like money to be betted on so foolishly. After all, what is the point of protecting something that has been doomed to begin with? Konoha has become too deeply entrenched in deceit and corruption to be ever redeemed. The village seeks to create more killers. The mere idea of training more healers and medics is thought to be a waste of resources. After all, it takes less resources to replace a fallen man than to create a fully fledged medic nin. and only a handful of people exist within a village at any given time capable of learning and adhering to the ideals of a medic nin. The Hokage business is crap. Well, when I become the Hokage, all that is gonna change, believe it. Naruto cut and incensed. On one hand resenting the Kunoichi for disrespecting the Sandaime. He still wasn't sure how he was supposed to feel in regards to his father, but on the other hand he couldn't fault Tsunade's logic. What did you say? You? Become the Hokage? Tsunade asked with a haunted look in her eyes. Naruto shifted uncomfortably in his seat, unsure of what to make of Tsunade's expression. It seemed like she was looking at him, yet not at him. It was rather strange. A memory, Inzen said. What? Her past is coming back to haunt her. You have triggered a particularly traumatic memory of hers. Tsunade soon recovered from whatever memory she had been entrenched in and dispassionately studied Naruto for a while, before idly commenting to the hermit. Jiraiya, you seem to like picking students based on their appearance. It seems that I have underestimated your perverseness. Do you happen to have a thing for little blonde, blue-eyed boys? Jiraiya lifted a hand to his heart theatrically as if wounded. I assure you Tsunade. Big S are and have always been and will always be my highest priority. He said with a booming laugh, openly ogling Tsunade's assets. Besides, the boy is a chunk off the old block. I am teaching him the Rasengan. Tsunade's eyes widened before narrowing again as she turned to look at Naruto again, this time seeing the obvious similarities between the Yondaime and the Kyuubi vessel. After all, there wasn't anyone else in Konoha with Naruto's unique coloration, considering that the Yondaime had been adopted by his parents from a civilian village outside of Konoha. The Rasengan, Tsunade said with a calculating gleam in her eyes. Tell me, boy, why do you care so much about the title of Hokage? Being the Hokage is my dream, Naruto said zealously. And a dream it will remain. What? Why can't I become Hokage? Naruto asked hurt. We will speak later. For now pay attention to Tsunade. She seems to have once again lapsed into retrospection. And sure enough, the haunted look had returned to her eyes, making her look lost and vulnerable. Jiraiya and Shizune both had understanding, sympathetic looks in their eyes. Whatever had happened in the past to Tsunade, it seemed that both the Toad Hermit and the dark-haired Kunoichi were aware of it. Boy, how long has it been since you have begun learning the Rasengan, and how far are you? Naruto looked towards Jiraiya, who nodded to him. A week. I'm past the first and second level. I'm working on the third. A week, huh? Tsunade said, grudging respect coloring her voice. She rose from her seat and walked around the table and stood before Naruto, bending low to meet his eyes. Becoming the Hokage, for you more than anyone else, is an impossible dream. Better men than you have tried, and failed, she said gently. Tsunade-sama. Shizune murmured sadly, speaking for the first time since the meal began. You remind me of someone, boy. For that I will give you, and myself, one last chance. Tsunade continued. Let's make a bet. A week. In 1 week. Master the Rasengan, and I will give you this necklace. Tsunade. Jiraiya exclaimed in shock. You can't. I don't want your necklace. Naruto said. Don't you? Tsunade asked coyly, fingering the green crystals that hung about her neck. It was my grandfather's, the Shodem Hokage's necklace. It is worth a fortune. Everyone wants it. Naruto, refuse. The Kyuubi said frantically. What? Oh, well I don't want it. You keep it. Naruto said, recovering quickly, fishing around for an excuse for refusing such an extraordinarily expensive prize. I'll earn my own money, my own way. I don't need yours. Besides, we're not family, so you can't give it to me. Naruto said, making warding gestures at the necklace. She is jaded and has cursed luck, and she wears a cursed necklace of jade. How ironic. Tsunade's eyes hardened as she stood up straight. Very well, she snapped. It's your loss. Master the Rasengan in a week, boy, and I shall become the Godem Hokage of Konoha. Should you fail to do so, you can give up on your dream of becoming the Hokage, because without my support, Konoha will never accept you. Tsunade whirled around, locking her gaze with her companion. Come Shizune. This place sickens me. Let's find a good gambling house. With those words, Tsunade stormed out of the restaurant with Shizune following close behind with Tonton in her arms, bowing and muttering apologies on Tsunade's behalf to the Toad Hermit and the Kyuubi vessel. Hey, you can't just leave. The restaurant owner called. You haven't paid your bill. Jiraiya laughed out loud and told the irate man to just add her bill to his own, and that he will cover it. Pacified, the man brought over the updated bill and Jiraiya pulled out his wallet. Naruto got up and raced out of the restaurant to see Tsunade and Shizune walking away. "I'll master that move in a week. Believe it," Naruto called out to the retreating backs. Tsunade only raised an arm in acknowledgement, without turning back as she continued walking until she and her companion disappeared in the crowd. "Hey Inzen." "Yes Naruto? Why did you say that? That becoming a Hokage is only a dream? That I will never become the Hokage?" Naruto asked in a reproachful voice. Inzen remained silent for a few moments before answering carefully. "Naruto, do you remember how I had said that Tsunade is a good candidate for the position of the Hokage because of, rather than in spite of her mastery of deceit?" Naruto nodded, uncaring of whether anyone was looking at him or not, valiantly ignoring the hopeful looks several girls his age were shooting him. What were they hoping for anyways? It was different here in this city, especially after his whisker marks were removed. Here walking down the streets, he did not receive the hateful looks that he had been subjected to in Konoha for all of his life. In fact, the girls strangely reminded him very much of either Hyuga Hinata or Yamanaka Ino from Konoha. The girls would either shove their s into his face as they tried to strike up a conversation with him, or they would go red-faced and stutter to the point of incoherence. Naruto had worriedly touched one of these Hinata-type girl's forehead to see if she had a temperature, when she readily fainted in his arms. "Yay, mastery of deceit. What about it?" Naruto asked, turning away as one of the Ino-type girls walked into his line of sight with swaying hips. Too bad for her that Naruto, given his childhood, was socially dysfunctional and had yet to hit puberty. "That's just it Naruto. You lack a deceitful nature and are far too honest. Other than that, you have already been overwhelmingly outcompeted by many others in Konoha who are better suited to the job of being a Hokage. Tell me Naruto, would you rather subject Konoha to your mediocre leadership, rather than someone else's exemplary? Do not be selfish, my little warrior. If you truly wish to protect the people of Konoha, take upon the duty that you will be best able to serve, not the one that you so foolishly aspire for because it is glorified. Someone else is better suited than me. Who? Naruto demanded incensed. Tell me, your little devotee, Konohamaru for instance. Your companion who made it to Chunin, Nara Shikamaru, and the insect user Aburame Shino. Whoa wait, Konohamaru, what's so special about him? Not much as far as ninja skills are concerned. He has after all only just recently joined the Shinobi Academy, the Kyuubi agreed. However, despite his youth, he already shows leadership capabilities. Also, he is publicly known as the Sandame's grandson, destined to follow in his grandfather's footsteps. He may not be the most intellectually inclined ninja in his batch, but he is the most well-rounded, or so claims your sensei, the one scarred across his nose, Amino Iruka. He is only 5 years your junior, and will likely receive training from the best of your village. No doubt he will grow up to be a fine leader for your village. Konohamaru, as the Hokage. Somehow the idea didn't seem so hard to swallow after hearing the Kyuubi's reasons. The brat had always wanted to defeat his grandfather whom he idolized. It would please the Sandame to see his grandson take over after him, caring for the village that was his namesake. Naruto felt bitterness twist his heart as he realized that there were far too many factors playing against him for him to be able to become a good Hokage. Most of Konoha regarded him either as an idiot, a threat, or both, and the belief had been passed down to their children. The fight for becoming the Kage was only secondarily a contest to find the strongest of shinobi. Although no one would ever admit it, it was in reality very much a popularity contest among the elite, and once all was said and done, you could only to hope that the chosen one had the good of the village at heart. To date, Konoha had been lucky in its choice of leaders, but that is not always the case, as is readily demonstrated by the politics of Kiri and Kumo. The Mizukage was the one to implement and later remove the genin graduation requirement of killing your roommate after the Zabuza fiasco. The Raikage was responsible for the shaky alliance with Konoha for using a peace treaty as a disguise to attempt a kidnapping attempt on the Hyuga clan. Shikamaru, that lazy guy as the Hokage. But he had already proven himself, hadn't he? The first to become a Chunin from their batch. Aburame Shino? He didn't know enough about that guy to make a decision. But he had been pretty awesome in the preliminary matches and was a finalist in the Chunin tournament. You wish to become a capable shinobi, do you not? Inzan said comfortingly. Focus on that as your long-term goal. After all, you do need to get stronger faster if you are to defeat the Akatsuki. Soon you will find yourself dreaming new dreams, which will soon become reality. It isn't the end of the world when one dream fails, Naruto. Take heart and be proud. One day you will become a legend of your own, if not the Hokage. My own legend? Naruto thought with a smile, the pain in his chest lessening somewhat. That sounds kinda cool. Indeed, Naruto. The Kyuubi said, a smile in his voice. You will be a legend. But I promised Tsunade. You simply promised to master the Rasengan, Inzan said. Not once did you promise to actually become the Hokage. You simply stated that you intended to become the Hokage. And there is no harm in having good intentions after all. Naruto fell silent for a few moments as he considered those words. Hey Kyuubi. Yes, Naruto? I don't know if I will ever become the Hokage. But I think I want to become the strongest ninja ever. Stronger than all of the Kage. Stronger than Akatsuki. A worthy goal for the vessel of the Kyuubi, Inzan murmured approvingly. Naruto? Jiraiya said as he came up to stand beside Naruto, putting a hand on his shoulder. Arrow Sennin, Naruto said loudly, startling the toad hermit. Don't call me that, he snapped. What do you want? I'm going to the forest to train, okay. Naruto said, his eyes glowing with determination. I'm gonna master the Rasengan in a week. Of course, Naruto. Jiraiya said, laughing heartily. What are you doing standing here then, wasting time? Go on, go on. Naruto smiled widely, and raced off to the forest where he had been training earlier before coming to look for Tsunade. Not noticing the disappointed groans of several girls and a few older women who stared after his leaping black form with the flaring white trench longingly. Naruto was beginning to develop a pretty good idea of what the girls were after. A niggling suspicion really, not a concrete thought. After all, his body had yet to learn to react to the attention. Gaki, if you manage to learn the Rasengan within a week, then you truly are your father's child. Jiraiya said softly as he watched Naruto leap over rooftops. Oh my, which outfit do you think would look better on me, the halter top, or this tube top? A blonde busty girl asked her tall brunette boyfriend excitedly, pointing at a display. Jiraiya turned around to look at the attractive teenage couple as they window shopped. Darling, I like you in whatever you wear, and better yet in nothing at all. The boyfriend answered playfully. The girl laughed as she coyly looped her arms about her boyfriend's shoulders. You are such a pervert. She murmured huskily. You know you like it. The boy murmured in an equally lust-stained voice, after which they engaged in a shameless, passionate hormonal make-out session right there in the middle of the street. Jiraiya with sparkling eyes, fished out a notepad and began taking notes. Oh, how he loved tourist destinations.
That's all for now. If you enjoy this video, then please like, share and do comments.